Hey friends, Dave Paulides, CanAm Missing Project. This is Huck, and she is the executive producer of the show. Do not question that. Huck Almighty is a good girl. Yeah. She's a good girl. Yeah, she's a good girl, puppy. Yeah, it's a good puppy. Yeah, it's a good girl. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good girl. Yeah, it's a good pup. Bless you. All right, we're gonna get on with it, friends. Got hey, what's that? Got an interesting show for you. That's an interesting snort there, Hawk. I posted something on my X account. You can follow me there, and it's at CanAm Missing if you want to follow me on X. Posted an interesting article. Date of the article was today, and it says the first report was filed just before Thanksgiving in Olathe, Colorado. This is on the Washington Post. 29 cows and calves, a rancher told a state agricultural official, hadn't come home. A week later, 3 more reports from 3 other owners. 46, 38, and 31 head of cattle all gone. 3 days after that, rancher Kelly Birch also alerted authorities. She'd counted her herd come up 43 cows short. I have this cow, but not this calf, or I have this calf and not the cow, said Birch, whose family had run cattle on the same swath of public land for 106 years. Something's not adding up, she said. All 187 missing bovines had spent the warmer months grazing thousands of acres on high Uncompahgre Plateau, rugged country where animals always fall victim to predators, illness, or weather, but never this many, and not without leaving lots of carcasses behind. Also unusual is the vast majority are of calves. The disappearances in the fall set off an unprecedented state investigation spurred by Colorado's governor and involving sheriffs of a multi-agency task force, search planes, a $10,000 reward, and a bull rider turned cowboy who has scouted the area on horseback. The effort casts a spotlight on an enduring way of life on Colorado's more conservative western slope, where cattle bulk up in wild forests. Months later, with much of the possible crime scene still blanketed in the snow, the case remains mostly cold. Lost livestock isn't unheard of in the agricultural area, famed for its sweet corn, but nothing of this magnitude at all, said Chuck Searcy, the administrative sergeant for the Montrose County Sheriff's Office. Searcy spent the winter fielding tips about suspicious characters and even theories about alien abduction. He has ruled out insurance fraud. He is convinced at least partially a theft case, probably carried out by someone deeply familiar with the area and knowledgeable about the industry. He said, say you get a little heifer calf and you breed her, and she has 5 babies for you, Searcy said. Now what's her value? A lot, officials note, drought and other pressures have caused the U.S. herd to steadily shrink since 2019. The combination has sent cattle prices soaring. At market, the 187 cattle could fetch $400,000. Even so, particularly are puzzling. No semi-trailer could reach the hard-scrabble, unpaved altitude where the cattle were spread. This kind of range, even experienced ranch hands don't know by heart. Typically, mother cows separated by their calves would show distress. A mass die-off, perhaps poison weed, would produce bodies. It's a mystery, said Jane Van Winkle, a former Cattlemen's Association president whose herd grazes north of here. It's a big mystery. The missing animals were reported to a local brand of inspectors who play a key role in Colorado's known as Brand State. In the lower 48, all states from the Rockies west are brand states. Colorado inspectors also investigate possible thefts, which began to spike in 2022. A task force was formed, led by Ingley, who included the Colorado Bureau of Investigation. The point is, like I said, a big, big mystery. And, 20 cattle, maybe out of 187, but 187, that's a lot of animals, folks. And when they say that semi-trailers can't get back into those areas, how did they get out? Right? All right. We're going to start off. We got 2 cases today. And the 2 cases center on the state of Washington, and Canada plays into this as well. First case involves a man named Archer Ray Johnson. A case you've never heard of before, and I didn't hear about it until too long ago. This is Archer, 42 years old, missing April 1st, 1986, from Grays County, Washington. He was married 1 month. He and his brother Earl were best buddies, very close, helped each other out a lot. April 1st, Archer and Earl got together to cut firewood. Now you say, Dave, where exactly was this? All right, that's a good question. So this is Oakville, Washington. This is Olympia, Tumwater, Ground Mound. They lived out here by Brooklyn and Oakville. And then here is Raymond, Washington, and here's where I have talked 4 times, at Ocean Shores. All right? Well, Archer and Earl got together to cut firewood. And they loaded into Archer's truck and drove from Brooklyn to Earl's home and unloaded a half a cord. And they left wood in it for Archer. Well, Archer helped Earl's girlfriend feed the cows and asked Earl if he could borrow $50. Earl said he didn't have the money on him, but he'd be glad to go into town, cash a check, and get the money to him. He said, that'd be great, I'd appreciate it. So Archer left first in his truck, driving on the road I showed you, to Oakville. Now, friends, I've been on this road. It's lonely. It goes through Weyerhaeuser property, a lot of it. Big open stands of a lot of timber. It's beautiful country. Elk country. You know what I say about elk. And 11:40 a.m., Archer left Earl's going to Oakville. So he's driving eastbound towards Oakville on this road. He was on the Brooklyn Road. Well, about 15 minutes later, Earl and his girlfriend leave, and they're en route to Oakville to cash the check and meet with Archer. Well, they're about 15 miles from their house en route to Oakville, and they come up to the top of this hill called the Oakville Hill, and there, parked on the side of the road, is Archer's truck. And the door to the truck is open. So his brother pulls over, they get out and look, and keys are in the ignition. There's a beer sitting on the seat, full, but open. And before he left Earl's house, Earl had given him a couple of beers. It was a hot day. They were sweating, cutting firewood, you get it. So he looks around and he goes, well, I guess my brother's out here either scouting deer or maybe looking for more deadfall. I don't know. Because Archer was known as a fern picker, a bark peeler, and a general rugged outdoorsman who knew his way around. And they had lived in this area for the vast majority of their life, so they knew it. Well, Earl and girlfriend hung out for a little bit, closed the door to the truck, and went on into Oakville. And once in Oakville, they got the check cashed, looked around for the brother a little bit more, didn't see him. So they left and they went to Archer's house. The gate was closed on the house, and they taped an envelope with the check on the fence on the gate. They did 2 hours worth of errands. And then Earl and Rosa drove back by the house, saw the check was still there, decided to take it, and then went back to their home. As they're going back to their home, they went by Archer's truck, still parked on the side of the road. And they knew something was really wrong. So Earl jumps in Archer's truck. They turn around and drive it back to his house. And when they get there, they find that his wife had just gotten home, and they explain the situation to her. And at 7:15 p.m., Archer's wife and Earl report Archer missing to the Grays County Sheriff's Office. And I gotta say, this is a pretty odd case. And in the past, I've told you about these cases where people are just on the side of the road. Doors open. It's almost as though they saw something cross the road, they pulled over real quick and chased it. And left their door open or something. It's very odd. But this has happened a lot. Well, the deputies interview Earl and his girlfriend and Pat, Archer's new wife. He has no history of running away or disappearing. And the Grays County deputy says to his supervisor, hey, we need a search here tomorrow. Well, the deputy asks Earl to take him to the spot where the truck was last seen, and they do. And they search that area. They look through the roadway. They walk down around where it was parked. They go up into the hillside. They turn the siren on. They honk the horn. Nobody, no response. April 2nd, the following day, Grays Harbor and the Pacific County Sheriff's Office, which is the next county over to the west, decide that they're going to help assist on the search and rescue as well. There's a man named Harry Anderson who ran a bloodhound through that area. And he said to the newspaper that his dog didn't pick up a scent from that truck. Another canine handler said he did pick up a scent and followed it a half-mile down the road and lost it. Well, if you saw something, maybe you would run down the road to look at it. There was a multi-day intensive search. They found nothing. I mean, nothing. And then on April 11th, 11 days after the search, and things are going stale, Earl and his girlfriend go to the sheriff's office, and they say that they wanted to restate their statement to him. And they said that they felt like Earl's life was in danger, and that somebody made a mistake and probably killed Archer, but they really wanted to kill Earl. But they didn't say who it was, and they didn't say why someone would want to kill him. Well, they were there for several hours. Grays County Sheriff's Office took the report. And they later told the press that Earl is not a suspect in the case. It's been 39 years, no suspects and no bodies. A few years ago, a newspaper in that area ran another story on the case. And they said that years later, somebody came forward and said that Archer was standing in the road coming back from taking a leak. And that somebody was driving down the road and ran him over, killed him, took his body and dumped him in a well. Somebody else came forward and said that Archer was killed and stumped. Stumped. Okay, I'm stumped. What stumped means is when a big old tree falls over and the tree and the stump all lay on its side, there's usually a big hole in the ground where the stump was. Stump means you put a body there, you cut the tree all up except just for the stump, you put the stump back over straight over the body, and nobody ever finds the body. Stumped. Well, a retired deputy said that he went to some of those wells in those areas. He goes, he didn't find anything. And there was nothing else that ever came forward. And there was no rationale behind why Archer would want to be killed. Another person said that there were some people in Oakville that saw Archer, followed him out of town, and then ran him over and killed him. But that doesn't make sense, because Archer never got to town. Archer was driving from his brother's house to town, and the car was facing towards town, or his truck was facing towards town. So none of that makes sense. Now, a lot of these times, I'll explain that when you get information about a disappearance or a murder or a crime, a lot of time it's from bad people, criminals. And they're trying to work their way out of a crime. They did a crime, and now, if I give you some information, will you let me go? That's just the way people are. And that's the way a lot of people work their way out of criminal activity. And it's true. As an example, if I arrest somebody for an 8-ball of coke, 8-ball of crank, and they say, hey, if I can get you a pound of crank, would you talk to the district attorney and see if they'll drop the case? Oh yeah, for sure I will. I'd rather get the dealer than get you. So those kind of things happen all the time. I mean, they happen every day. And the best policemen always do this stuff, because you never catch really big criminals without informants. Fact. So, it's been over 3 decades. Archer's never been found. Lots of rumors, no facts. Nobody ever came forward and said that Archer was targeted for doing something bad. It's just a big whodunit. Now, in this area in which Archer disappeared, there's also other cases. So this is the map I just showed you where Archer disappeared. Now right here is Raymond, Washington. Not very far away at all. See the distance between Oakville and Brooklyn? There's Raymond. Here's the spot where I've talked at a bunch. There's missing people here. There's missing people here. There's missing people all over that area. And the next case I'm going to talk to you about is very odd. And it involves a man, one of the first people I ever wrote about, a missing hunter from Raymond, Washington. His name was Raymond Matlock, 28 years old, disappeared November 7th, 1998. This is Raymond. Easygoing guy, people liked him. Outdoorsman, loved the outdoors, loved hunting. Disappeared November 7th, 98 at 5 p.m. He was single. His parents were Barney and Caroline. Described as somebody who really knew the outdoors well and knew that area around Raymond very well. Now, On November 7th, Raymond and two friends went to the Bone River area of Raymond to elk hunt. Well, sometime during the day, as always happens in 411 cases, Raymond got separated from his buddies. They were supposed to meet Mac at the car at 5 o'clock. Raymond didn't show up. Friends called the Pacific County Sheriff's Office. They came out, took a report, and they walked the area with the hunters trying to understand where Raymond might have gotten lost. Now, Raymond had hunted this area many times, and nobody really believed he was lost. He knew the dangers. He knew where to be careful. Well, there was an extensive 3-day search, and the Coast Guard helicopter with FLIR came up from Astoria, Oregon, and flew the skies for 3 days. Now, the exact location of this, here's a bigger map of the entire area. So this is where Raymond disappeared, the Bone River. Now remember I told you, and this is Oakville. This is Ocean Shores where I spoke. There's 3 people missing right around Ocean Shores. There's 3 people missing right here by Nia Bay. There's 2 people missing right here just outside of Port Angeles, all along the coastal areas. All right? Every time I am in Ocean Shores, I drive that coast north to Nia Bay and over to Port Angeles. Every time. Why? Because I find it some of the most uncomfortable, unusual, strange place in the Northwest. I'm serious. Because of all these disappearances that I know about. So, remember, elk hunters have the highest rate of disappearance of all hunters. So keep that in the back of your mind. Raymond was described as healthy and in good shape. Days go by. People went back, looked and looked and looked, and nothing. Helicopters searched the waterway of the Bone River. They looked on land. They looked everywhere. Nothing. 26 days after Raymond disappeared. It's a long time, folks. Almost a month. And 125 air miles north off of Vancouver Island, a body is floating off of Point Renfrew. Police are called, they recover the body. Date was December 3rd, 1998. There's no ID on the body. The coroner said he believed it was a Canadian because they didn't think a body could float across the Juan de Fuca Straits. What's the Juan de Fuca? Here's Point Renfrew. This is the Juan de Fuca Strait right here. Raymond disappeared here. Remember, almost a month later, his body shows up here in the water. Okay? Hold those thoughts. So they didn't think a body could float across the Juan de Fuca. Why? Currents, etc. And the body didn't match any known Canadians that were missing. So the coroner decides that he's going to keep the skull of the dead person and bury the rest of the remains at the Royal Oak Burial Park. Now, the Canadian coroner never thought about checking any USA cases. I think that's insanity, but I'm not a coroner. And then after 2010, the Canadians developed a website called Canada's Missing. And someone, they never said who, was looking through NamUs. NamUs is the US website with all of the cases of missing people that have the DNA on file. Well, someone saw similarities between Canada's missing website and NamUs and this body found off Point Renfrew. They call Canada. Canada calls the USA and says, hey, can you send your DNA to us because we'd like to check it. So Caroline Matlock, Raymond's mom, had given her DNA to NamUs. NamUs gave it to Canada. Now, December 21st, 2016, 18 years after they find the body off Point Renfrew, Canada gets a DNA match off that body, and it was Raymond. Now, after I shook my head 10 times, I couldn't believe it. I still can't believe it. But it gets more weird. So Raymond, in his deceased state, his body, had to have traveled at least 125 miles, because in a straight line it's 125 miles from where he disappeared to Point Renfrew. But the body had to go down the Bowen River, up the coast, and friends, it doesn't go in a straight line, right? And then across the Juan de Fuca, and then seen off Point Renfrew. And the body was afloat 28 days later when it was seen in very cold water. So let's do some grammar school math. The body is missing for 26 days. And it traveled at least 125 miles. I'm not going to exaggerate on the miles. Let's just divide 26 into 125. Well, you get 4.8 miles a day that body had to travel. Well, Dave, that seems exceptionally fast. Yeah, it does. With no predation. The body is floating along and there's no predation at all. So I looked up a map. I tried to find as many maps as I could on ocean currents. And this is the one that showed the closest to what we're looking at. So this right here is the US-Canada border. And that little tiny inlet right there is the Juan de Fuca. You can barely see it. But the ocean currents are coming in this way. And then they hit the coast. And I don't know, to my feeble mind, it looks like they go south. Is that what you see? That's what I see. So my question is, if the currents go south along the Washington coast, down past where the Bowen River enters the Pacific, how did Raymond's body go north, cross the Juan de Fuca against what the Canadians thought was possible, and end up off Point Renfrew? Is that just a stupid thing to think about? Or should we be thinking about that? Now, the other part about this that I find interesting is this area back in here. Do you know what that's all known for? It's known for feet and tennis shoes washing up on shore. San Francisco Bay Area has never had that. Because I lived there for 50 years. I've never heard of that. Or how about Long Beach? Or how about San Diego Bay? No, I can't ever hear about that. Why that area around Vancouver? What is going on there? Well, the coroners don't have a lot to say about it. They say that many of the bodies are people who have taken their own life. They think. Nobody's ever witnessed it. But then the other question is, they're very closed-mouthed about who the rest of these people are. And they aren't releasing that information. Why? Because there's dozens of feet that have washed up. Now, Canada did a really good thing. I admire this a lot. When they determined that the body was Raymond, they called Caroline, his mom, who's then living in Texas, and said, what we're going to do for you is we're going to exhume the body from the cemetery, and we're going to cremate it, and we'll fly the remains at our expense to you in Texas. A classy thing to do, Canada. Thanks for doing that for Caroline. But I'm not going to let you off the hook, because when you found this body in '98, and you could look across the Juan de Fuca at the United States, you were so sure that that body didn't come across that you never even wanted to check with the U.S.? Do you realize how sure somebody must be to do that? And if you're that sure, then how in the heck did Raymond's body get across the Juan de Fuca? Right? So friends, those are the two cases for today. And yes, they confuse me a lot. How Raymond's body made that trip. I'm not convinced it did. There's enough bodies missing along the Pacific coast of Washington and along the Juan de Fuca and on Victoria Island. Yeah. I'm sorry, Vancouver Island. Yeah, there's a lot there. So, I appreciate you being here. Please take a look at Kickstarter, and we are just inching over the top right now of making our goals. But the weirdest thing happened the other day. We were $22,000 over our goal with contributions, and suddenly, simultaneously, a group of people canceled their contributions at the same time, and we lost $22,000 in contributions. Well, that wasn't lost on me, friends. Here's why. There's a group of people that don't want us to meet our financial goals. And at this 11th hour, if they cancel, and we come in at the end of this Kickstarter and we don't have enough to go over our targeted goal, we get nothing. So we're back down to just being over the top of our targeted goal a little bit. That $20,000 hit was huge. I cannot see it being just a random act by all these people at the same time, on the same date. No, I don't think so. It's somebody trying to do us harm. So I need you to step up. Go to Kickstarter.com, type in Missing 411 National Park, and if you can give a contribution, it would be greatly appreciated. I appreciate you being here, and your comments on my videos are always appreciated. They're insightful and they're thoughtful, and for that, I greatly appreciate it. I also appreciate the fact that Huck didn't snore too much. So, you can follow me on X, which used to be Twitter, at CanAm Missing, and I hope to see you there. Paulides out.